Okay, how's this for an absolute dream scenario for a first time filmmaker? You write and you co direct a completely original film inspired by your culture and your love of music.
Let's get battle ready.
The movie K-Pop Demon Hunters is about a K-pop girl group called Huntrix, whose job it is to slay demons and use their voices to weave a protective golden web called the Han Moon. Maggie Kang interrupts her amazing summer to be here with me now. Maggie, welcome to Q.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Did you see this coming? I mean, it feels like all the headlines are about this unexpected, Netflix hit. What's the biggest surprise of this summer for you?
As a filmmaker, you are kind of in a hole working on your film. And for animation, it's usually for originals, it takes about 6 years of just writing and rewriting and figuring out the story. And then there's just so many stages that we go through, but you don't really expect this kind of reaction. I honestly didn't think it was even possible for a movie to be this popular, really.
It
So
really,
it's incredible.
you're right. You kind of, you've kind of hit the absolute apex of all of it, from the Billboard charts to the Netflix sort of numbers. Let's talk about this movie and what it means to you, because I know you've said in an interview that you kind of made this movie for your teenage self. Can you describe a little bit about that teenage Maggie? You were a K-pop fan in Toronto in the 90s. Paint that picture for me.
K-pop in the 90s wasn't very popular in Canada. So, I've always had a very deep connection to my culture and my Korean culture. We spent a lot of summers fully in Toronto, in Seoul with our family, and so growing up, I had kind of this like dual culture influence. I had all of the things that you get in Canada, but also going back to Korea and spending summers there, just absorbing all of the kind of music and pop culture and everything. So that really stuck with me, even when I came back to Toronto for the non-summers. And, I used to go and like buy photo cards of the K-pop idols and magazines and CDs, and I would hide them from my friends who were not Korean because they thought it was kind of funny and made fun of it. And so to come this far and see K-pop now just be this force and this global sensation, it just makes me really proud. And it makes me also think like, see you guys, that was cool.
I was cool after all.
Yes.
Was there, of course, none of us feels cool when we're teenagers, but obsessing over our music. But was there a particular group or idol that you remember falling absolutely in love with?
Yes, my OG idol group is called HOT.
Okay. Did you have their poster
And
on your wall? I mean,
I
did you
did.
the
Yes.
duvet cover?
No, I mean, all that stuff was really hard to get in Canada because somebody had to go there and bring them back.
Right.
Like it wasn't like a lot of this stuff was being shipped, in high volumes. So it made it that much more valuable. So a photo card, which is just like a laser printed card, back in the 90s was $10 each. Which
Wow.
was a lot of money for a high school kid.
And sort of like a baseball card? Are they that size? And
No, they're like
or they're bigger?
like photos,
Yeah,
just like
okay.
maybe like that big that you would kind of print get printed these days. Like
And you
any
sort of,
kind
what
photo.
would you do? Stuff them under your mattresses when your non-Korean friends came over? I mean, was it really sort of this covert fandom you had
A
going
little
on?
bit, yeah. I had a little box. My sister was also into it as well, and I actually didn't have any Korean friends growing up, which is really odd, but my sister did. So I would actually hang out with my sister and her friends, and she let me do that, which was really great of her. And so like I had a little bit of a group that I could do this with. But yeah, it was like all in a box, and I would just look through them.
Okay, so in addition to that, you're this kid who loves K-pop, but
Mhm.
I understand also growing up you loved watching films and you watched a lot
Yes.
of movies with your dad. Tell me a
Yeah.
bit about that ritual and maybe what that brought to your life, what you got out of that.
My dad is a huge cinephile. He is actually one of the first members of Cinematheque Toronto. Um, I think he was like one of 10 one of their like first 10 members or something. So so growing up, I would just see him go to Cinematheque every weekend. Saturdays and Sundays, he would go down. He would go to downtown Toronto and, watch a screening of, and that was just kind of his weekly thing that he did. And he also had a huge collection of foreign films. So he would collect by director, and whenever he found a director that he really loved, he would go back and watch all of their previous work and then wait for, to watch their career grow as well. And so I would just sit there and kind of watch these films with him. He would watch anywhere from like 3 to 4 films a week, which is a lot of film. And he still does that to this day.
Wow.
I was just up in Vancouver last week, and same thing. He's just blasting, he's just blasting those foreign films from his room.
When he's
So
not watching K-pop Demon Hunters.
yes. So, as a kid, I would just kind of sit down and watch things with him. And he's the one that introduced me to all amazing world cinema and introduced me to Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite. He turned on The Host one Christmas and said, like, this is a very popular film in Korea, and I love this director. And Bong is a huge inspiration of mine.
Wow. So obviously his passion, got under your skin, got into your blood, and you went on to study animation at Sheridan College, which is in Oakville, Ontario.
Yes.
And then you were scooped up by DreamWorks. You've been working steadily as a storyboard artist there for almost 20 years. I mentioned some of the big budget films you've been involved in, Puss in Boots, Kung Fu Panda 3. So in the midst of all that, what gave you the confidence to sort of put up your hand and say, I've got a story I want to tell, and it's about my own culture, and oh, by the way, I'm going to direct it?
It took me a while to get there. When I was coming up at DreamWorks as a story artists are known to be very loud. We're kind of like, I don't know, I guess drama club of the studio. We're very loud, we're very fun, we like to talk. And so when you actually, DreamWorks is an amazing place because at the time I was kind of coming up, we had about anywhere from 80 to 100 story artists. And when you sit down at lunch and people talk, it's like you're hanging out with a bunch of like stand-up comedians. Everybody's just so fun and funny. And so growing up in that culture, you kind of want to be fun and funny too. You want to add to that energy. And so you kind of start to learn how to write comedy and tell jokes. And so I had this like amazing like education in comedy writing.
Hey, this is the men's bathhouse. Get out of here.
During my time at DreamWorks, I had built this relationship with Aaron Warner, who is the producer of all the Shrek films. And he and I were looking for a project to work together. And he ended up at Sony with Wish Dragon, which is the movie of my directing partner, Chris Appelhans. And he said, I'm looking for my next project. I'd love it to be, a very director-driven, director-written film. Do you have anything to pitch me? And so one day, my kid was sleeping in the backseat, and my husband and I, who is also a director, producer, creator type, we drove around the neighborhood and just came up with this idea. And it's really a combination of a few ideas that I had been kind of mulling over. And he said, why don't you just put everything together? And it just became K-pop Demon Hunters.
Right, because you had an idea about
Yes.
demon hunting, which, and that significance within Korean culture, but also you loved K-pop. And I did read that it was your husband who said, why go for one when you can put them both?
Yeah, and oddly, it all fit together really well. So the next day we met Aaron and pitched it to him over brunch, and he loved it. And the next week he had a deal ready.
And here we are, 7 years later, mind you. But here we are. So that story, the film does tell for the, 3 people left on Earth who may be listening who haven't seen it. There's a girl group, Huntrix, and they have the power to unite people through music. And then there's these demon boy band rivals, the Saja Boys, who cultivate a toxic, literally soul-sucking fandom. I'm interested in, I'm curious what you were trying to explore here in terms of the different sides of fandom?
There is fandom that can, be a little bit toxic. And I don't think we really wanted to like lean into that idea, but I think the idea of the Saja Boys really came from, it's actually a reference to HOT, the group that I really liked growing up. They had this song called Candy, or like they would have a single that's like very bright and cute and just like soda pop is, and very bouncy and colorful. And then they would go away for about a month or two. And back then there was no social media. You really didn't have a way of like getting any information, and they didn't really do any like, I don't know, like teasing before they released their next single. And the next time you saw them, they just burst onto the scene, and they were like dark and had these crazy edgy haircuts, and it was a totally different vibe. And as a fan, you were like, oh my gosh, I don't really know if I like this because it's so different from what I'm used to seeing. But because you're such a fan, you start to like, okay, I think I could get into this. And then you're very much into it. And so that experience for me was just such a, I don't know, it was just a memorable like experience as being a fan of these boy groups. So that was something that I just wanted to translate into the film.
You got some really heavy hitters from K-pop in on this project. You had Blackpink's producer Teddy Park and EJ, who does Rumi's singing and is credited as a songwriter. Tell me about how important that was for you to get buy-in from the K-pop industry.
Yeah, the K-pop industry is very specific, and the music is also the way that production is done is very specific and different from other genres of music. And the way they kind of roll out their films and public, and promote it is a little different as well. And so we felt like if we wanted our music to be kind of, like embraced by the K-pop community, the easiest way to do that and the best way to do that is to partner with a K-pop label and produce our songs that way. So, we looked at a few options. Black Label felt like it really suited the vibe of Huntrix, and we really are big fans of Teddy and the girl groups that he has created in the past. So it felt like a really good collaboration.
How does it feel to you to see so many of the songs, not just people singing along watching the film, they're on the Billboard charts? I mean, it's massive success on both the film and the music level.
Yes, we always talked about the music being good enough, at a, by the pop standard to be able to compete with the music that's out there. But I don't think we ever really thought about it actually being on the charts for some reason. So yeah, to see kind of all our songs doing so well is really, really surreal.
Okay, so this is a very personal film for you, as we've described, and I know that the visual style of the film sort of borrows from some of your early influences back when you were watching those films with your dad. The soundtrack comes from your early love of K-pop, and I heard that even some of your facial expressions were involved in how things were rendered on screen. Like there's literally a camera on your face so the animators could capture your expressions. Can you tell me about how that worked?
So one of the things that I really wanted to show in this movie was just a different type of female character. And I felt like, these girls are superheroes, and the superhero sector is very congested already. We've seen, we see countless of superhero films coming out every year, and we have seen a lot of female superheroes, but I felt like there was still a space where we could feature women who were a bit more real and relatable and not afraid to look silly.
Let's send those disgusting demons back to the depths where they belong!
Yeah! Yeah!
I've worked on a lot of films where, female characters are not really the silliest ones. There's like a fear to make them look ugly. And I really wanted to break all that and go for the silly faces, make the girls chug down food, and really just push those expressions so that they kind of look ugly. And so a lot of that acting came from the animators. For reference, we usually shoot acting. So the animators will do an acting pass and they'll show it to us and we'll talk about it. And
Wait, sorry, what do you mean by that? You'll film actual actors doing these motions and then you animate that?
the animators themselves they'll film themselves doing
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And because as an animator, it's really important to kind of feel the acting that you are going to portray.
Oh, that's so interesting. That makes perfect
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Even when you draw, you kind of want to like feel the expressions, and that just helps you convey that through a drawing or like in a model. So I think that's just a very important creative process for animators.
Okay.
And so we will see these reference images or videos of, and sometimes it'll just be one person, and they'll get a couple of their colleagues in on it, and they'll act out these moments, and we'll talk about it, and a lot of times they'll give us a few options, and we'll pick the right one for the moment. And some of the time, sometimes the acting is not quite as I want it, so I will sit in the room and do the faces for them, and act it out so that we get what we need.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, that's a whole other level at which this film really is so personal for you. And there's so many details of the film that make it very specific to Korean culture,
Yes.
Both historical and contemporary. And I understand you really made an effort to go beyond the cliches. Is there something I see in the background of the room where I'm speaking to you from, and you've got the tiger, who's a character that we see in the film. Tell me what makes you most proud, would you say, Maggie, when it comes to how you represented Korea on screen?
When I first came up with the idea, it felt like just purely a superhero film about Korean women and K-pop. And once we really grounded the mythology into Korean shamanism, it really opened up this opportunity to feature so many different eras of Korea, really show the history of how Korean music evolved through the ages. And we see that in the beginning scene of the movie. And it's not long, it's quite short, but I think as a Korean person watching this film, it's just very meaningful to see just Korean garb, like old time Korean garb, being featured and praised and celebrated on the big screen. I think that was very meaningful to me, and I've heard that from many Korean viewers that they were really surprised to see that, and kind of made them feel very emotional about it. So I think grounding the lore in something that exists in our culture and has existed in our culture for hundreds and hundreds of years really let us just show more aspects of our culture. So I'm really proud of that. Yeah.
Talk about being emotional. I joked that your dad's, watching the film in between all his other films, but I mean, he is a major cinephile. What has he had to say about K-pop Demon Hunters?
Truthfully, my dad is a little bit of a film snob. So I think, and he's a lot older now, and I think the pacing of this film is quite fast for him.
It's a different generation's film,
yes,
perhaps. Yes.
But he understands that it's a movie. I think he thinks it's a movie for younger people, but he's very proud.
Maggie, it's an extraordinary accomplishment. I'm so happy to talk to you about it today. Thank you so much. All the best to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. That was really fun. Thank you for having me.